Greetings, everyone. Before we're going to start our discussion, we will have an attendance first. Casul is present.
Lopez, Rianne, present.
Enghug Naishane present.
Bonnie Christine present.
Burias, Jisell present.
Tirol, Lyra present.
Arranguez, Michelle present.
Since everyone now is present, we are now going to tackle about the discussion about the vaccines. So we all know that the Philippines, which are country, uses 3 vaccines, which is the Pfizer that has a 95% efficacy rate, AstraZeneca that has 70.4 against symptomatic COVID-19, and lastly is the Sinovac that has a 51% overall against symptomatic COVID-19. So what are your thoughts about vaccines, Rianne?
So, as what I have researched, once we receive our first dose, our body begins produce antibodies to the coronavirus. These antibodies help our immune system fight the virus if we happen to be exposed. So, it reduces our chance of getting the disease. It is true that we can still become infected after being vaccinated, but once more of the population is vaccinated, those chances are further reduced. So getting vaccinated not only reduces our chance of being infected, it is also contributes to community protection and reduces the likelihood of virus transmissions. So how about you, Naishane? What are your thoughts?
Okay. My thoughts about COVID-19 vaccination is that it needs measurement of population's general knowledge of the coronavirus vaccine is very important to improve public acceptance and decrease vaccine hesitancy to confront the disease. Because it will not only protect yourself, but it can also give protection for your family and friends. By getting this vaccine, you also lessen the chance of spreading the COVID-19 with whom you have contact with. How about you, Christine?
Well, very well said, Naishane. COVID-19 is still a threat to people who are unvaccinated. Some people who get COVID-19 can become severely ill, which could result in hospitalization, and some people have ongoing health problems several weeks or even longer after getting infected. Even people who did not have symptoms when they were infected can have these ongoing health problems. And according to research, vaccines differ in their composition and how they trigger the immune systems to create the antibodies. These antibodies protect the body from microorganisms and serve as protection once a person gets infected. Vaccines can be inactive, weakened, or killed copies of the whole or part of the virus. Viruses or bacteria or genetic product that creates protein copies with causing diseases.
So in my opinion, the usage of the COVID-19 vaccination is still unsafe because according to a scientific study, vaccines must be studied for at least 5 to 10 years. And as is the case in Norway, some elderly persons died after being injected with COVID-19 vaccinations. People are panicking these days because they don't know what will happen to them after being injected with vaccines that will be well investigated. And in fact, these vaccines are only temporary immunizations that some elderly people who are sick should avoid. For example, suppose you had diabetes or something similar. So, Lyra?
Yeah, you all have a point there. So even if majority of countries agree that vaccination is the most effective strategy to combat this pandemic, still in many locations, a lack of confidence is preventing the vaccine from being widely distributed. So even if it is completely safe and effective, governments are reluctant to force individuals to get vaccinated.
Right, you have a point also. And also, once you have fully vaccinated, you can start doing more. You can resume many activities that you did before the pandemic. And also, there are some questions that make people hesitant to take the COVID vaccine. And one of that is, do COVID-19 vaccines contain microchips? So the answer would be no. COVID-19 vaccines do not contain microchips because vaccines are to fight against disease and are not administered to track your movement. Also, vaccines work by stimulating your immune system to produce antibodies, and exactly like it would if you were exposed to that disease. And after getting vaccinated, you develop immunity to that disease without having to get that disease first.
And to sum it all, since we are all the future educators, we should encourage the people to get vaccinated.
Okay, since our topic is all about COVID-19 vaccinations, what are your opinions about the Cebu City being under GCQ with high-end restrictions since our presidential spokesman Harry Roque announced the various quarantine classifications for the entire Philippines as approved by the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases on Monday, September 6. So, can you give some information about it?
Yes, Rianne. As we all know, MCQ and GCQ, it is one way to lessen the cases. During MCQ in our place, the border is very strict, unlike GCQ, but now, we are under GCQ starting today, according to the new executive order of Governor Gwen Garcia, but still, there is a curfew hours starts at 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., and we will still need to follow the health protocols given, just like avoid gatherings or going outside when not needed.
Indeed, it was to survive the pandemic. Humans have shown incredible resilience and courage to fight against the invisible monster. Just like any natural disaster and crisis that has suddenly unleashed upon us, the lockdown or quarantine came. Everyone has been in quarantine for over a year. Many of us our daily routines, frustrated about staying indoors all the time, longer quarantine duration, infection fears, frustration, boredom, inadequate information. It is completely normal to feel this way as it is in our nature to go out and socialize with other people. But what we don't seem to realize that there is a plus side or positive side of being a quarantine or lockdown. The reason is that we are flatten the curve by safeguarding ourselves from coronavirus diseases.
So except for pleasure, people are free to move between GCQ and MCQ zones. Movement to and from tougher quarantine levels, on the other hand, is prohibited.
So, multiple places have been placed under modified enhanced community quarantine, the second strictest set of measures, including our city, Cebu. So, for commuters who are permitted to leave their houses, some public transportations like vehicles are permitted. Other businesses, such as tourist attractions and entertainment venues, have been told to shut down, which is so saddening. Unnecessary mass gatherings are prohibited as well. So, fortunately, most workplaces and public locations can operate now that we are under GCQ as long as they follow social distancing standards. So still no mask, no rules should be followed in accordance with safety regulations.
Okay, so in addition to that, general community quarantine means of limited movement to services and work within buffer zone and outside the buffer zone. Also, operation of government offices and industry up to maximum of 75% workforce. Also, limited transportation, services to support government and private operations, and flexible learning arrangement operation at limited capacity to cater to students. While modified community quarantine means permissive socioeconomic activities with minimal public health standards.
And to avoid the turmoil, I am going to simplify the difference between these two health protocols. So the MCQ in population, everyone is not allowed to go out, and so does in GCQ. While in the public transport, MCQ, all public transport is suspended, while the GCQ, the public transport may operate with social distancing observed. While in the work commerce, in MCQ, more business are allowed including manufacturing and processing plants. In GCQ, more businesses are allowed such as malls, hardware, TV and music productions. And before we are going to end this discussion, we will leave a inspirational message. Let's
Get
vaccinated,
And
Together,
we
will
Fight
fight
this COVID-19.
19. Thank you all for attending our discussion and goodbye. Have a safe
Bye.